Good to go? Okay. Okay, we would like to acknowledge that we are privileged to meet on the unceded and ancestral territories of the Squamish and St'át'imc nations. We do have an agenda recommendation.
That the agenda of this meeting be approved.
Thank you, Melissa, and a second. Thank you, Celeste, and all in favor. And Cynthia, yes? Okay, all good? Thank you so much. Okay, we do also have a minutes recommendation.
That the minutes of the Finance Committee meeting held on May 13th, 2026 be adopted.
Thank you, Melissa, and second. Thank you, Celeste, and all in favor, and that's carried. Okay, moving, do we have any trustee items? Well, good. So now we're moving on to information items, and I think we have our auditor on screen. So welcome, and go ahead.
Hello, I guess that's me. Can you hear me? Yes, Elena's saying yes. So hi, I'm Donna. I'm the audit partner for the audit of the school district, and I just wanted, it's okay for me to start? Yes. Just wanted to take the opportunity, as we always do around this time of year, to talk about the audit process that we have started so far from a planning perspective, but that we are continuing after the school district's year end actually finishes. So the June 30th year end finishes. We have our audit planned for August. But just to take the opportunity to discuss with the trustees our planned approach to the school district, any questions that the trustees may have about our planned approach, and just make sure that we're on the right sort of basis for doing the 2026 audit of the school district. So I think, Elena, the report that was circulated to the trustees with our audit plan, is that correct?
I don't think they received it.
Oh, okay. That's okay. I can wing it.
We'll forward it to them now.
Yes. There is a document that we prepared that has our kind of planned audit approach for the audit. I would say from a big picture perspective, although there are significant changes in accounting standards that are planned for the 2027 year end of the school district, there aren't any changes to accounting standards for the 2026 year end. So the status quo from an accounting standard perspective for this current year, there will be changes coming into effect for 2027. From an audit standards perspective, no changes in audit standards from the prior year. So from a big picture perspective, kind of a status quo from an audit and planned procedures perspective. When we think about kind of major risk areas, and you'll see this in our report, and I think we've talked about it in prior years. We look at this part of the audit. We work within a concept of materiality, but we also kind of look at where are the biggest areas of risk and where do we focus our procedures. I think the things that we've highlighted in our report are things that are very similar to the prior year, where employee compensation being your single biggest expenditure is an area where we spend a significant amount of time, not only looking at what expenses have been incurred and testing those expenses, but also looking at your employee benefit obligations and making sure that they're accurately stated as of the end of the year. Capital expenditures are an area where we spend a significant amount of time in testing the expenditures that the school districts made during the year and making sure that it's supportable and authorized in terms of capital, and that the amounts that you have capitalized are recorded appropriately in the books and records. I think one area where we do see risk, even though the dollar value might not be as big as either those two large items, but school generated funds are another area where there's risk related to the procedures and controls around school-generated funds generally. And so that's an area where we will spend effort and time. A couple of things to point out for this current year that are new is, and that I just had a call with the Auditor General this morning and other kind of big firms where we talked about kind of the things to look out for in the current year. We are aware of some, collective agreements that have either been ratified or are in the process of being ratified. And those collective agreements have some retroactive payments included in those agreements. And so certainly for the ones where those payments will be made before year end, that's not an issue, or whether there's payments not made by year end, those are required to be accrued. But one of the things that we also will look at is the funding or confirmed funding with respect to those retroactive wages, and whether there's significant evidence from the province to record those receivables related to those retroactive wages. So that's something, it's not new because it comes up every 3 years when those agreements are reached, but that's something that we'll look at. And then the other thing that we look at every year that I just wanted to highlight is there is a requirement for the school district to record a liability for what we call asset retirement obligations. So to project the cost of any remediation that you have to do to buildings that you own, even though you're not making that remediation right now, but there is an obligation to make some sort of remediation in the future. And so one of the things we need to do is look at the estimates that the school district has used in making those future cost estimates to make sure the liability is appropriately recorded. That is a very big picture overview of the audit. Maybe Danielle or Elena, maybe you can share if you think we should be covering anything else in any sort of detail.
Oh, do you have anything?
No, I noticed that your focus is you have some more items to focus on, like school-generated funds and something else like technology, and also there has been increased explanation of your responsibility and your status of being independent compared to last year. And of course, we will be talking about all that in August.
Yeah. And then the other thing maybe to chat about, which I think is in our report, is, as maybe we become more sophisticated, we are using more tools to do our audit. And so I think we've used this in the past, but we will continue to use a tool called MindBridge as part of the audit process. And what we do with that tool is we bring in all of the general ledger transactions of the school district into the tool, and it helps us analyze the data to help us identify more higher risk entries. And so we'll use that tool, but we'll also use judgment in being able to identify entries as well. But that's something that has been, changing over the past few years, and trying to use more of those data analytic tools to help as part of the audit process.
I don't foresee there being any major audit issues anyways at this point.
Yeah,
So-
I think in sort of when we had our preliminary discussion, from what we've done so far, I don't think there's any big ticket hot issues to talk about, but this is usually the time when I'll reach out to the trustees to see if there's anything on your minds that you think we should be aware of as we get into the audit. Or
Donna,
that-
would you like staff to step out so you can? Oh, right. But we could
Stay.
Okay, so I guess I will turn it over to trustees. Do you have any questions? Celeste has her hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Donna. It's so good to see you and Rachel. You've been doing this for a number of years, and the number of years escapes me now, but I just think there's so much benefit with you coming back year after year. We appreciate the identification of risk that you've been able to do for us over the years. I don't know if there's feedback is that on my end? And then just for the benefit of the public, I just wanted to state here that we do, the board does have the opportunity, as Danielle alluded to meet privately with the auditors through the processes that we have in place. That won't necessarily happen today, but we do have the ability to do that on a cyclical basis so that they can express any concerns directly to the board. So thank you for all of your work. The one question that I had is how much longer can we expect to have you? And is it the board's decision to continue retaining you? Can you just remind me how that process works?
So there typically, yes, with any other government reporting entity, there's a kind of a RFP process that management goes through from a governance perspective in terms of soliciting proposals from auditors and then appointing auditors. I, off the top of my head, don't remember what year we're in of that RFP process. I probably should know, but I don't. But we are we had gone through in the past few years, gone through a process and have been appointed for a number of years. I just don't know that number.
And why is the decision not made by the board? Why would it be made by management?
So I can answer that. So basically the RFP process is very involved, where we put out a request for proposal from anybody, any firm that's interested in working with us. And it's quite in-depth process of evaluating and interviewing and asking questions with the auditors that is done internally by staff. And then once staff does a rating, that's what the RFP process does, is it rates based on a number of things such as price, services, stuff like that. And we do a rating based on that. It could be like expertise or experience, all of those things are considered. And once staff does that, then they rate each one of the proposals, and then they will come forward with that recommendation to the board to appoint the auditors at that point.
Okay, so the board does have the.
So I think the board does.
So the
approve
board
the
appoints the
recommendation.
auditors, for the time period.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of the pressures in terms of, the auditors having to give feedback on management and then management having a role in selecting the auditors. There may be some conflict there, but I know that professional standards do guide the work that you're doing, and you have been very, very good over the years. And so thank you so much, Donna. That's it.
Thank you.
Rachel tells me we're in the third year of 5.
Okay, third year of 5, did you say?
Correct.
Yes.
Thank you for that. Cynthia has her hand up. Go ahead, Cynthia.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, Donna, are there any trends in the industry that you're noticing that we should be aware of?
Trying to think big picture. I mean, the only trends that I don't know if it's an industry trend or a provincial trend in terms of ability to provide funding. So I know in our discussion this morning about kind of even the retro pay and getting provincial confirmation of funding that retro pay. We haven't, like the second piece, I think they've approved the retro for the teachers, but I think they haven't approved the retro for the second piece. So we're just finding that government is maybe a little bit just in time in terms of providing those assurances.
Okay.
Thank you, Cynthia. Any other questions or comments from trustees? Okay, seeing none. Okay. Are we done?
Yep, I think.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Rachel and Donna, for joining us. Appreciate having you here and working with you over the summer.
Thank you.
It'll be fun.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for joining.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Okay, we're still all good. Okay, so that moves into the Indigenous Education Funds update, and I do have in my notes that Julie was listening in as a chair, but I don't, has she tried to connect? She's not here, so do we go ahead? Yes. Okay, so go ahead, Danielle.
Okay, I'm gonna see if I can share my screen.
That'd be nice.
Let's see how that goes. If it lets me or not. Okay. So, okay, so this, I just want to go over, I guess, a few things before. A little bit bigger?
A little bit bigger. I see there's room on the big screen, so there must be room.
Unless I move it to this screen. Okay, hold on a second. I have to stop this.
Sorry.
This is. How's that? Is that big enough?
Yeah, it's getting better. Oh,
Yeah, it's
yep, I can see those numbers.
okay.
Yep.
All right. Okay, so Indigenous Education Council met last week. Chris, Guy, and myself met with each nation before the Indigenous Education Council meeting to balance the budget. For the IEC meeting, we weren't able to have all of the members. They were not all available to make the IEC meeting. And the IEC requires a minimum of one attendee from each nation to reach quorum. And unfortunately, Lil'wat was not able to attend the meeting. So what the terms of reference for the Indigenous Education Council says is that for us, for the budget to be passed or any item that needs to be passed for like the minimum amount of attendees, we can do it over email. And so we did still present the budget at the Indigenous Education Council meeting, but it wasn't able to be passed there because we were missing that one nation. So it is currently in the process of being voted upon by the nations over email. But I don't foresee any issues why it won't be able to be passed because I've met with each one of the nations individually to go over the budgets and make sure it balanced. So I just wanted to share that with everybody. That's a little bit of a change in process because of that. And then I'll just go over specifically each of the budgets, and then I'm happy to take questions while I'm going through it. Okay, so for the North, overall students are projected to be, so the North, when I'm talking about the North, it's for Lil'wat Nation and Naquaqua students combined. Overall, we're projected to be up an increase of 16 students from the prior year. So we're projected to be at 260 students. And last year the current year we're in, the 25-26 year, we're at 244 students. And then we did not receive any per student funding increase. I had mentioned that in a previous budget update. So we didn't end up receiving any increases for Indigenous funds for that. So that number stayed flat from the current year that we're in. So as a result of that increase in students, there's an increase in funding of $28,642 for the North, which is good. And then the other thing that has been updated in here is all of the wages have been updated to reflect what the staff are making with Lil'wat Nation. It includes all of their benefits as well. So some of the staff have moved to be, some of them are 4 days a week and some of them are sort of in transit. We're not sure. There's a vacant position there. So some of the salaries aren't completely finalized, but this is the best estimate that we have. These budgets are not required for the board to be passed because Indigenous Education Council is the ultimate decision maker for the budgets now as a result of Bill 40 legislation that was implemented. And then another change that I just want to go over down here for the north. For this position here, this Indigenous Success Advisor position. So that position is a School District 48 employee. And this is a 1.0, a full-time employee hired by the school district, and half of it's paid for out of targeted funds by the First Nations budget here, and then the other half is paid by the district. So previously that position was paid 0.3 out of targeted funds and 0.7 out of the district. And we were able to negotiate like 50-50 split this time. So we'll see if that continues or not, because our budgets are getting very difficult to balance. And for our elders program, for us to be able to balance the budget, we had to reduce that amount from $15,000 to $10,000. I think for the current year that we're in, we didn't, like, we had 15,000. I think we were only able to spend about 9,000 so far. So I think that's a reasonable amount anyhow. And then another change is we had to reduce this grade 7 and grade 12 celebration to 0. And the reason for that is there have been no plans in place for last year or this year there was nothing that was actually came together where they had a plan to spend those funds. And so they said temporarily anyways, we could take that out. However, with a change in administration at the schools in Pemberton with an upcoming year, if we're able to afford it, they may want to plan something for the Indigenous grads then. So we'll see if we're able to afford it. And I suspect that there is going to be some additional funds available for the North, because we do know that some positions in their budget from this current year, they've moved from, like, let's say like full-time to part-time. So we do know that there were some funds unspent. So I suspect there's going to be some carry forward funds for the North. So we should be okay there. But I just wanted to show everybody this one point. So we're pulling in $465,400 in revenues. And then this is what the wages equate to, $486,595. So as you can see that the wages are outpacing the budget amount, the revenues that we have. So eventually, if the North continues to be fully staffed, eventually we're going to run out of funds to balance the budget. But at the moment, we are able to make it work because we had significant carry forwards from prior years. So we had prior year carry forward of almost $200,000 expected for that we're aware of for sure, and there'll probably be more. That's from many years of unfilled vacancies. So just something we'll have to keep an eye on. We would like to have some continuity in the staff there, and obviously, we want those positions filled. But if they are filled, then we will eventually down the road have to look at either reducing program costs or staffing costs or something. We'll have to work with the nations too. Sure. Go ahead.
Just with respect to if there's been no increase, can you remind me what's happening provincially or at BCSDA level to discuss this issue of, or like what we should be involved in terms of, yes, there's a significant carry forward, but now is probably the time to be talking to the province about this particular problem?
Yeah, I think when I look at the South with you guys shortly, they don't have the funds, so they are already having to make some cuts already. So we'll go through that. But yeah, I think this is something that you can advocate for 100%. That because the staff wages will go up. They do have HR contracts with the nations. They're employees with the nations, and the nations are rightfully giving them increases. However, we're not getting increases to pay for any of that. So it's all kind of, it's becoming more difficult to balance our budgets. So yeah, definitely the nations are starting to feel it.
So just, because I have so much coming at me, I will forget. So maybe out of this meeting, we could have an action item of some correspondence to flag this issue, either with the MLA or with the province or through the BCSTA, to do something to say, hey, we noticed this is a problem and it needs to be addressed.
So through advocacy.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
I think it's a great idea
Thank you.
for AGM.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, it's like a year away, but yeah,
But like,
totally.
let's put it on the list now while
Yeah.
we're thinking about
Right.
it. Yeah.
Right.
Is there any other questions before I move on to the
Nope.
South budget?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay, I'm
Okay,
just
so we're on to
gonna
South.
stop here.
Oh, sorry, I did have one question.
Yeah.
So even though this is voted on by the Indigenous Education Committee and is completely, all of the budget items, I am guessing, are put forward by them, but you are still doing the legwork of balancing the budget, so.
I just need to interject. So, yes, Danielle is supporting,
Okay.
but it is just, I'm concerned about language, and I don't mean to
Right,
correct
right.
the secretary treasurer or any of us, but we do not set the budget. We
No.
do not make changes. We do not do any work. We support the nation in the conversation around budgeting, and then they make the determination. So when, for example, when enrollment does decline, then the nations do need to make decisions about how they will proceed, whether that's maintaining ISWs, maintaining personnel, and making changes to programming, or as we do, as districts do when there are declining enrollment, sometimes we do make changes to staffing. And so I just want to be as respectful as possible, but just to say that while I know any kind of advocacy for increased funding is valued and it's important, at the end of the day, it's the sole responsibility and work of the nations to determine how they want to spend money, and they are fully aware that they are maintaining the levels of service that they would like to continue to provide based on the carryover that they have, and we'll know that they will have to consider what changes they would like to make to maintain that to meet the budget. But I appreciate, again, yes, for sure, if things aren't keeping pace, that would be a wonderful thing to advocate for. But I just want to just be clear, and we're super appreciative of Danielle's engagement and involvement. As the nations themselves also go through personnel changes at their level around access to folks who are balancing budgets and whatnot. So because the contracts are held by the nations, each nation also has a financial department. But Danielle has absolutely been going above and beyond by supporting while some personnel changes have happened at that level as well.
Okay.
So I think, our last thing, just for the legislation to be really clear on, is the staff position is the secretariat position, which is supported by the current district principal of district education and the administrative assistant. And then Danielle and I, any other staff or trustees would be invited by invitation. And they've been very gracious to invite us to most meetings. And I know they're very thankful for the support that the secretary.
Go ahead, Celeste.
It sounds like what you might be saying as well, Chris, is that if any advocacy is done by this board, perhaps we ask the nations how we can support and then do it in part. And it's also like a nice way to have more interface.
Absolutely.
How can we support, we in looking at these budgets that you've developed want to assist because we can
Thank
see
you
that
for
there's an
bringing it so
area
quickly.
for advocacy and maybe a joint letter or something like that could be a nice way to have a little bit of co-work together.
Thank you for
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, so just to reiterate what Chris is saying, my role is to show the nations what we have for funds. And like literally they are the ones who decide how it's spent. Obviously it has to be for education, to support their education purposes and support our students, but they're the decision makers on it. I'm just there to help them figure it out as a finance support for them.
Okay.
Okay.
If there's more questions, you're gonna do the north?
I'll do the south now.
The south, sorry.
Okay. Okay, so for the South, which is Squamish Nation specifically, The overall student count is actually a decreased, projected to be a decrease of 13 students. We were at 273 students in 25-26, and it's projected to go down to 260. Now that could change. And it sounds like when Chris and I met with Squamish Nation, I can't remember, was it last week? They thought there was going to be an increase, but we'll see what happens. And as I mentioned, there's been no student funding increases versus the previous year. We received $20 a student, so that's unfortunate. So, and then that as a result of the student decrease, the funding is going down by $34,010 for Squamish Nation. So the Squamish Nation employees did receive increases as well. And so as you know, as the wages have been increased and this per student funding has stayed the same as well as decreased because of the student decline, unfortunately, that's made some pressures on their budget here. So we were able to, one of the staff members, they've decided to split their hours between working as a support worker half-time, and then the other half-time they'd be working for the nation. So they had to reduce some hours that were coming out of there. This year they were able to spend $40,000 for 25-26 on a behavior interventionist trainee. And they, because of the decrease in funding, they weren't able to afford to have that position for next year as of right now anyhow. So that there's nothing in this current budget, and perhaps they can afford it internally, I'm not sure, but there's nothing in this current budget for that position. And we also had to reduce this language and cultural programs, supplies, mileage, and honorariums. It was originally 17,000, and it's had to be reduced to 10,925, basically to make the budget balance. So there were some reductions there, and also for cultural journeys, which is used for Statmas School to provide the program there. That budget also had to be reduced. It was 15,000 and it's been brought down to 12,000, and they do spend that usually the whole amount. So that's been down to 12,000. Squamish Nation, in general, I would say they don't have much for unfilled vacancies. Usually they can fill positions pretty easily. And so there's less vacancies. So they don't have the surplus ones that the North has. So basically we're just coming out. As of right now, I have to wait till year end is completed. Probably in August, I'll know if there's any carry forwards. But as of right now, I don't foresee any, because they're pretty much spending most of the funds as they have them. So I'm happy to take any questions on that.
I don't see any.
I'm gonna stop sharing for
Go
that.
ahead to the C, Indigenous Education Council.
Okay, so for the Indigenous Education Council budget, we didn't really make any significant changes from the 25-26 version of that, just due to the fact that we were missing Lilwat Nation. So usually we have there's a planning session to plan out the funds for the next year, and the group decided to wait until they had all of the nations at the table to do the planning. So what was agreed upon at the meeting was to basically leave the budget the same. I'll just pull it up really quickly too, just to show you. Quick highlight. So for the 2024-25 year, the ministry gave us $77,750. There was $397 spent that year. For 25-26, that's the current year we're finishing up right now. There was $87,050, and we were estimated to spend $11,143. I don't think we're going to hit that even. And then the ministry significantly decreased the amount that we're receiving for 26-27 to $32,674. So total funds estimated to be available were $185,000. which I think will actually be more than that. And so this whole proposal here is what the team came up with for 25-26. And we haven't adjusted anything. Nothing has been adjusted because we're waiting to have all of the nations at a meeting to do some planning for the year, which we'll probably be doing in the fall. So even with this plan in place, there's still like $34,000 that needs to be allocated. So we'll keep the board appraised of that, but there's some significant funds sitting there we need to figure out a plan for. So.
Cynthia, did you have a comment?
No, I don't have any comments. It's interesting that those funds are restricted.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it has to be used specifically for Indigenous Education Council expenses. It can't be used for transportation. It can't be used for targeted fund purposes. Like, it has to be specific for the council, which is frustrating because we are having budget pressures in the other areas.
Yeah.
And we can't use it for anything other than this.
That's exactly what I was thinking. The other budgets you were highlighting where the pressures were, and then you come to the next budget and there's, money that's going unspent. And so
Right.
Yeah.
I think maybe if advocacy needs to be taken, maybe it's not asking for more money for funding, it's asking for funds to be less restricted.
Yes.
Okay, I'm just gonna stop.
Okay, any other comments from trustees? Okay, where are we at? We don't need anything passed, we're good. Okay, so let's move on, please, to discussion items, the 3-year financial plan, and I have Danielle and Elena there, so whoever's speaking, take it away.
Yeah, I'll just pass it over to Elena. Elena prepared this plan. I can't remember what year we're in of it, the 3rd or 4th year of doing it. So Elena, I believe, has a few slides to go over for this one. So
Yes.
go ahead.
Now, share my screen right now. So multi-year financial plan, so 3-year plan. It's the first time we're doing it. It's required since 2021-22 year. Required by the ministry because we submit 3-year enrollment projection, and the province prepares a 3-year plan, but the school district submitted only next year budget, so it was required now to submit 3-year plan. So this is the items we will look into right now. The plan is not a 3-year budget. It's a next year budget plus 2 projected years, year 2 and year 3 for 26-27. It's an annual budget that we will be looking at later. 27-28 it's year 2 projections, and 28-29 is a year 3 projection to make it 3-year plan. So financial plan is part of operational plans. And this year we used mostly the same way like we did the last year. I will go over some differences this year. Overall budget process, right now we're at adoption of annual budget, and 3-year financial plan is adopted at the same time. The main purpose of multi-year plan is to align our strategic priorities, objectives, and strategies to implementation of financial plan. So to show that what we budget is in line with what we announce as our priorities, and that we have funds for that. We are in the process of strategic plan development, but our priorities stay the same. In this document, we have alignment with the same main areas of priorities. It's like student learning, equity, truth and reconciliation, mental health and well-being, and community engagement. And financial plans are supposed to support all those priorities. So there are assumptions made to make year 2 and year 3, because it's quite far into the future. We sometimes not sure what to plan for next year. This is like 2 more years. I highlighted here the changes in assumptions, projection assumptions, comparing to what we did assume last year to project year 26, 27, 27, 28. So for the most part, it's all the same. We assume that funding model would not change, that per student funding on average will be how it always been. Staffing levels will be following for major groups like teachers and support staff will be following student enrollment. Salary increases are, I changed last year we were projecting at 2%, but this year we know it's like teachers already collective agreements announced that it's 3% every year. And projection assumptions are 3% for unionized staff and principals and vice principals. Benefit rates saw a big increase last year, and actual for 24-25 was 27.4% of benefits out of salaries. For 26-27, we are budgeting 32 because we've seen some information about increases, and the same 32% we keep for year 2 and year 3. So there are the change that we do not, we hope to that substitute costs, that teachers on call and EAs on call, those costs would in projected years would stay the same as 26-27. So for service and supplies, like inflation is the biggest contributor to the assumptions. Like we kept 2% inflation rates, but the same like last time we kept this, we increased 2% only insurance and utilities because it's non-discretionary cost. We have to pay what we have to pay, and try to keep other budget line items, just finding efficiencies. To find those efficiencies in year 3, we would have to decrease service and supplies other than insurance and utilities by 2.12%. Last year, year 3 had 0.6% decrease. This year it's much higher, and it would require some decisions may be made, but we hope that we will maintain the same level of service. Enrollment revenues per student amounts stayed the same like in 25-26. All per student amounts, like regular enrollment, special needs, everything stayed exactly the same. This is because it's a bargaining year, and the funding increase will be happening through labor settlement, which has not been announced for 26-27, but that's why the rate's also the same. But the funded enrollment is for entire year, and it goes down according to trends set by demographer Barger Company. So 5,166 FTE students budgeted for 26-27, and year 2 and year 3 see decreases like 5,122 in 26-27, or 27-28, and 28-29, 5,082 students. For international enrollment, 26-27 is budgeted at 131 FTE, and year 2 and year 3 at 135, because our student in like resident students enrollment goes down. There is some room for international students, but not at the same level as a decrease of resident students because of limitations of homestay families. It's hard to find homestay families, so that's why increase in international is just for students. These are operating grants and other revenues based on these enrollments. You can see that international stays the same in year 2 and year 3. And our operating Ministry of Education and Childcare grants goes up, even so like the reason why it goes up, even so our enrollment goes down, because there are some demographic differences in years that we took into account 5 years historic changes in special needs, which is growing significantly over the last 10 years, and also English language learners. These increases contributed to slight increase. Also, this amount includes funding, direct funding from Lillooet Nation. Staffing levels, FTE for teachers, educational assistants, and support staff follow our student enrollment trends, and principals, vice principals stay the same, 23, and other professionals, which are director of instructions and trustees, are 32. The salaries. For year 2 and year 3, estimates include 3% increase for unionized staff and principals and vice principals. Other professionals are kept at the same level, as you can see. And employee benefits also at the same percentage level comparing to salaries. Service and supplies. Insurance and utilities do see 2% increases to reflect inflation, while the rest of budget line items, so in year 2 stays the same like in budgeted 26-27, and in year 3 see decreases overall 2.12% for all services and supplies other than insurance and utilities. This brings us to our surpluses, which is for next year, 26-27 annual budget. We have to appropriate restricted reserves of 855,000, and we would be staying at 2.26 annual operating surplus. On year 2, we will use what is projected, budgeted restricted reserves would be at the end of the year, and also would have to use 635,000 of unrestricted reserves, which would balance the budget and would bring us down to 1.37% of unrestricted reserves. And in year 3, when we had to decrease 2.12 most of service and supplies, we would use the rest of our reserves to balance the budget and have a little bit over 1 minimum required % of unrestricted surpluses. So this is the end of my presentation. If you have questions.
Anybody? Cynthia?
I just would comment just to say thanks for preparing that. That's a lot of thought and a lot of skill going into balancing a budget that is so tight and making those projections 3 years ahead. I would like to ask questions about where you think the cuts will be made and how you're going to make those cuts, but that's a very long conversation. I don't need to have that answered right now, and I'm sure that you have given it a lot of thought, but yeah, a really tight budget.
It is. Thank you, Cynthia. Celeste, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I definitely want to ask that question right now because we have talked about this before. And I know Danielle has mentioned that there may be restrictions on travel and that sort of thing in terms of cuts. But what I heard Elena say today is that there may be service impacts as well. So it would be really helpful to know, I'm sure you have some idea of what the impacted areas may be potentially.
Well, this is not my decision to make. This is
Mhm.
much bigger decision. I can say where the most pressures are.
Oh,
And when we talk about budget, next year budget, and the only thing I say that I hope to not decrease, so that we will not have to decrease the level of service. That service will be the same. How we go about it, we'll have to have some brainstorming from the senior staff.
Yeah, I think some clarity
Mhm.
is in order when we hear the word service cut. So that's inclusive of, you know, are we putting a new carpet in the board office? Are we doing the same level of vehicle maintenance and repair? We will always protect and support student services first. So let's make that clear. We know that the kids need services. I will also share that when we look at the slide that showed potential decreases in FTE for teaching staff and support staff, please note that that's also based on a declining or steady enrollment, and those are usually handled by attrition. I don't want anybody panicking about folks not having jobs. That's something that would absolutely, provide well in advance information to the board. So let's make that super clear. And as always, these budgets are also done the most conservative possible. So just like our enrollment, where we have a conservative amount because we'd much rather add jobs than take them away.
Yeah.
There's still some possibility there. But again, yes, we have been discussing possible ways to keep the budget in the black, and where those suggestions we made will be brought to the board for consideration. But of course, we know the value of the folks in the trenches with the kids. And when we mention service cuts, that's not where we first go. There's all kinds of services that we make changes to. I think the one thing I will surface now, because it's going to come up, is as we shared before, and when we do the budget, we do know that not sort of get into your area there, but I know that we did not get our request for new buses, and so that's where there is real possibility next year due to the maintenance requirements for buses, and we will navigate any service disruptions in that aspect next year as best we can, and we'll resurface that again next year as well, especially as we get into the winter season, because we want to make sure the board and the public is fully aware of some of those stresses, and we'll continue to advocate for equitable, talked about this before, equitable funding from the ministry. Probably get tired of me saying it, but again, we recognize, and I'll say it for the record again, that those districts that do not provide busing do not have the additional costs above and beyond the subsidy that we require, and that I think we can all agree that in some instances, in some districts like ours, busing is not necessarily a nice to have. It is a need to have to get our kids to school. And I know we will be discussing if that's something we have to look at, potential ways to recoup some of those expenses, but early days right now.
thank you, Chris. I see Cynthia has her hand up. Go ahead, Cynthia.
Thanks, April. Chris, something you said made me think about like restricted surpluses. And Danielle, maybe you have the answer to this question, but similar to how the IEC had lots of money in surplus that was restricted, do we have any restricted funds that we're having trouble spending?
Go ahead.
We do have restricted funds. And in some cases, yes, some cases, no. It depends on what it is. And some of it, perhaps when we do our budget reviews, we might be able to unrestrict some of it. But some of it we can't. Like some of it's like fully restricted. We have to use it for that purpose.
Mhm.
So So when our budgets get tougher, we're going to be having a closer look at that. And what Elena and I have talked about is that down the road we can maybe put a list together of some ideas of where we can make reductions if we have to, just like planning for like years ahead, even just like some ideas. But there is something that's going to be coming out of BC ASBO where they've been collecting information from all school districts about because this is a reality that school districts are having enrollment declines across the province, and they're struggling also financially. Like this is a reality across the province. So school districts, I think they're gathering all the information. So I'm really curious to see what everyone else has put together for things that they are now doing for reductions. Like it's what's happening. Very few I think most of the school districts are on a decline at the moment. So this is something that it's a reality for everybody in the system right now. So
Yeah, I don't doubt that at all. It just when you hear comments from the minister saying that, oh, education is fully funded, and it makes me wonder, maybe I don't know. Okay, if you're thinking about all of the funding, like maybe is it just restricted, and does that just bring us back to that idea that we need to advocate for funds to be less restrictive? Like, would that be a helpful piece of advocacy for us?
I just want to remind the board, and thank you, that at the BCSTA EGM, the entire, every trustee, every district present, all voted in favor of many items relating to budget, including sustainable and adequate funding for public education. So again, I just want to say thank you to this board and to all the boards really, because that messaging did come loud and clear through the BCSTA. So thank you.
Celeste, you good? Okay, are we good? Any more questions?
Oh, sorry, I did have one more. I'm so sorry. I forgot about it.
Elena, you had said that other professionals stayed the same over the 3 years, and that included the board and senior leadership. How can it stay the same? Because there's
Yes,
increases
you're right.
every year.
It's 3, 3, and 3 is what you're saying.
Well,
Oh, no, staffing stays
For
the
staffing.
same. Staff.
but it was the total amount also stayed the same.
Funding.
Yeah.
Funding, it did go up in 25, 26, and we kept it at this level because there is no announcement about labor settlement for next year. So we do not know if exam staff would be funded, raises would be funded. So we kept exam staff for year 2 and year 3 is the same, like.
But that will likely change.
no, not necessarily. They may decide not to fund it, those increases.
They actually announced for 25, 26 it would not be funded, and then it was a change that it was funded, but not at the same rate as unionized staff. So now we never know. It's not a given, so it might be announced last minute.
I think the clarity is the differentiation between funded and unfunded. So what's being shared is the ministry, as we know, has funded percentages, varying percentages for different groups. If they determine they're not going to do that for exempt staff next year, then any contractual changes like our PVPs are contractually guaranteed with positive performance as teachers are, right? Increases. But the ministry can decide they're not going to fund that, in which case those contractual obligations by the board, we have to find the money from others from operating. And that's happened in the past, where they put determined that they will only fund collective agreements. So it's teacher and support staff collective agreements, but not exempting principals.
It seems
So that's-
concerning.
It's very concerning. Now, again, I would just say it's part of that sustainable ongoing funding from the ministry. You can imagine the larger districts that have vast numbers of exempt staff, if they were not to provide the contractual increases for principals and vice principals, that would be a proportionally, right, giant hits. It would be very, it would hit us very hard as well, because we have a smaller budget.
Yeah. That's it.
Okay, so if we have no more questions or comments for Lana, can we close that and move on to number 6, action items, 5-year capital plan? Ian, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is our district's 2027-28 edition of our 5-year capital plan related to major capital. So that's things like additions and new builds and things like that that fall under major. So we've got 3 projects, proposed projects to put forward to the ministry for consideration. Number 1 being the seismic mitigation project at Howe Sound Secondary that's been put forward for 10, 11 years now. And we have tweaked the submission documents many times over the years. And then this year's submission is a resubmission of last year's information. So we're under the recommendation of our planning officer. We are rolling forward the project request information that was shared with the board last year. We're pushing that, rolling that over again for this year for consideration. The only changes to that information are dates and enrollment numbers. So the enrollment numbers are slightly softer than last year. So that is what will go to the ministry at the deadline, by the deadline on the 30th of June. And then we've got 2 demolition projects that were also, it was recommended that we submit these this way by our reporting officer for the old teacherages. So there's 2 teacherages up in Pemberton that are derelict and need to come down. And then there is the Pemberton teacherage that was slated for demolition a couple of years ago and then stalled out because of archaeological assessment requirement. So we're looking at asking the ministry to fund those demolitions, including the archaeological assessments under this program. And so in the information that you received, it had to be determined. We have some preliminary numbers for the demolition, and it's not huge numbers. Both projects together are just under 60,000 is what we're expecting, including archaeological assessments. So we're hoping that the ministry supports those. But more specifically, Taylor Road is about $32,500 and then are expected to be. And then the Pemberton, the Blackwater Creek teachage demolition is expected to be about 25,000. It's bumped up a bit over what was expected before due to inflationary pressures through construction and everything like that, and cost of fuel. So that is also including the expected costs for the archaeological assessment. So that those projects would come in just under 60,000 together. Yeah, and then to get back to the seismic mitigation project, we are putting together 2 options again for the ministry, same information that was put forward last year. One being seismic upgrade only to the existing B-wing and shops. And then option 2, which is the recommended preferred option of our district, is to replace those 2 wings with new construction. So that's why on the plan there's considerably higher expected costs for the replacement, but there's better value over time to go for and recommend that the ministry consider replacement of those wings rather than upgrading existing.
Okay, thank you, Ian. Celeste, go ahead.
I just had one quick question just about insurance for earthquake. If there is a major catastrophic earthquake before the ministry takes any action on this, are we adequately covered I know every year it goes up for residential properties.
We are as insured as we can be under the school protection program, so all districts in the province are insured through that program. For a major catastrophic event, you know, if it happens, liquefaction is the risk, and so that the B wing and the shop sinks into house sound. It would be extremely costly, and hopefully there's no loss of life, but you never know, right? In an event like that, when there's an earthquake and when it happens. So the risks are considerable, but from a liability coverage perspective, we are as covered as we can be under the program that we subscribe to.
Like for residential, it's like 10%, you have to pay 10% or something like that. So we would have to pay to rebuild the structure.
No, so like if there was anything like where we lost like a whole school to a flood, fire, earthquake or something like that, the ministry would just like, they would go through their priorities across the province and they would like start to rebuild, you know, like we wouldn't be able to pay for any of that. That's like so expensive that the ministry would have to take care of that. And that is happening in other places in the province. Like I think in Coquitlam, there was like a whole school burnt down there. So the ministry would prioritize that and we would have to figure out where we would put the students in the meantime. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that, Ian, and no more comments.
I do have a question.
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
With the teachers demolition, have we ever looked into, like you see it all the time where there's houses for free on Craigslist and place and stuff. Would that be an option? And then people who scavenge all these old houses, like, is that ever an option or is that a risk?
Well, for the Taylor Road teachers, there are hazardous materials within those facilities, and it's right down to lead paint on the exterior, so it isn't the most exposed coat that's out in the weather right now, but a couple layers down, there's lead paint in that building, as well as other hazardous materials, asbestos containing materials in drywall joint compound and also around pipe insulation. And then there's mercury switches and things like that in thermostats for controlling temperature. So those structures I feel are too far gone to be offered as somebody come and take them away. Is that what yours?
That's exactly what I
Yeah.
was thinking.
So
The
yeah, there's
liability on
no-
the district would be
I
prohibited.
was wondering that.
Yes.
So there's no sort of historic value in them to be preserved or anything like that. They were, I'm not saying poorly built originally, but they're very basic structures designed for very short-term lifespan as buildings go. So they're well past their best before dates. And the condition of the buildings isn't great. It would be really expensive for somebody to try and bring them up to current standards, especially if they have to remediate all of the hazardous materials. And then the one at Blackwater Creek has been damaged by fire. It would be, in my opinion, beyond repair. However, if somebody might say it's their dream build and they want to take it away, I don't think that we would even entertain that as a district as an option. It's better to clean slate and be gone.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Celeste.
I'd be prepared to make a motion that the Finance Committee recommend the Board of Education approve the 27-28 major capital plan as presented.
Thank you, Celeste. And a second, please. Thank you, Melissa, and all in favor. And that's carried. Thank you. Thank you for that, Celeste. Okay, so that moves us forward.
Oh, sorry, I think, did you vote as well? Because I think we need you to vote.
Oh,
for to be,
okay.
yes. To meet quorum.
Oh, right. Usually that's because, okay, yep, you're right. Thank you. So that's passed. Now we are on B, the 2025-2026 annual budget and bylaw. Again, Danielle and Alana. No, we've done that.
No, we haven't yet.
Okay, so go ahead. Annual budget summary, is it going to be Danielle?
I'm going to turn it over to Elena.
Okay, go ahead, Alana.
Thank you, Danielle. I'll share my screen. Didn't prepare slides next time, but we'll go the file that is very familiar.
Mm.
So this annual budget for 26-27, we are doing first, second, and third reading in one. We can see that comparing to amended annual budget of 25-26, our student enrollment declined 240 FTE.
Projected.
Yeah, that's how we budgeted 26-27. And per student amounts didn't change. As a result, our enrollment-based funding is 45.4 million, or 2.8 million down from amended budget of current year. For this decline, the province gives us funding protection and enrollment decline supplement of this amount, 2.4 million of supplement funding to offset those losses. With all these changes, other enrollment-based funding is 650,000 down, and overall we arrived to 66.8 million of operating grant funding, enrollment-based funding, which is almost 1 million less than in amended budget of current year. So some other grants from the province in this area, you can see there is no labor settlement because it has not been yet announced for next year. So all the rates are old rates, and labor settlement is not there in the revenue either. International program has 131 FTE students, which is 0.9 down from 0.9 FTE of international students down comparing to 25-26 amended budget. But our tuition is 1,000 up from 15,000 to 16,000. So overall revenue is not seeing that loss. And there are some differences in childcare comparing to how we presented it last year for amended budget 25-26. So childcare funding now consists of two parts: childcare funding from the province and childcare fees from parents. What is included in the budget are two childcare centers in Brackendale Elementary and Signal Hill Elementary, budgeted to operate at 70% capacity. The capacity is 24 kids. And we budgeted so it would be at least 70. If it's less, we will be seeing losses on childcare. So next is special purpose funds. All this group of funds at 11.8 million, which looks like the same like in 25-26 amended budget. However, we received early learning programs for 2 years, for 26-27 and for 27-28. 175,000 is earmarked for 27-28. We cannot spend it in this year. We must carry it forward. And tripartite agreement saw some cuts. We are not allowed now to have a special support funding as part of this agreement, and also extracurricular also been scooped from funded.
Can I explain that a little bit further? Okay. So yeah, we just found this out like a couple of weeks ago. The provincial government and the federal government weren't able to come to an agreement for the 26-27 year for tripartite funding. And so what they've done in the meantime until they come to an agreement, and we have no idea when that could be. It could be like a year, 2 years, like we have no idea how long it could be before an agreement comes into place. But for now, the provincial government is giving us funding only for to and from school supports. So just direct transportation only. They were giving us $30,000 a year to help with extracurricular activities, which we fully use that and in excess of to pay for the late bus at Pemberton Secondary to drive the students to Lilbot and Naquaqua back after, like, if they're taking sports or out of timetable courses. And so that's a big hit for us because we do use that bus route. It's needed. And there's no way for us to get the funds for that. And then we also received $30,000 or a little bit more than that, I think 30 something thousand for a bus monitor for the bus for the north for the 25-26 year. And we're not going to get funds for that for next year. However, we weren't actually able to hire into that position for this year. We couldn't find anyone for that position anyways. So we do still have the carry forward funds for that. And we're going to be working with the First Nations to see if they still require that position, because it sounds like they may not. That might be going well on the bus, not sure. But anyways, we are down because of that unsigned agreement, 66,000, which is a lot. And Len and I did reach out to the province saying, like, are we able to use it for the transportation to and from school? Because what happened is they froze the 25-26 funding amounts, and they're not giving us an increase for the 26-27, which means that we are absorbing the increased costs of the transportation costs, such as fuel costs and wage costs have gone up. Like, some of our mechanic wages are paid for out of this, as an example. So we're having to absorb those extra costs that we have to internally. So this is another example of just pressures we're feeling in the system.
Yeah, and I think it's worth sharing that when meeting with the IEC, because the restrictions are on targeted funds, that's why in the north they increased the amount that they're paying for the Indigenous Success Advisor, because that's about $20,000 or so that they know we can put toward busing if necessary. So we just want to publicly thank the IEC for increasing that coverage from targeted funds so that those savings could go to busing as needed. It doesn't cover the whole amount, but it's appreciated.
For 26-27, for tripartite services, we are not planning to do anything different. So we're, except we will have to use 66,000 more of operating funds to maintain the same service.
Less the money that the IEC has contributed to the Indigenous Success Advisor position.
District intends to use 955,000 of surplus to balance the budget, but not unrestricted surplus, only restricted surpluses, which are carried forward, and special purpose fund surplus. This particular 100,000 is a literacy grant that we received this year, but we don't think we will spend it. We will have carry forward. So the total revenues is 84.4 million, and the allocation that we made, I will go through here. Overall, if we look at all allocations made to schools, itinerant services, leave provisions, and other district services, in staffing side of all those services, there are no structural changes in staffing except temporary reductions to balance budget that we usually have in preliminary budget, like 0.4 in services, and also some staffing like personnel movement, somebody not full year, somebody less than full year, so that those changes are not reflective of like some structural changes. Other things I would say, like up and down in different areas of budget allocation, also vastly depend on carry forwards. Like or completion of projects. And the biggest challenges we're experiencing is in technology and transportation, what I see in the budget. You can see that transportation, like Danielle mentioned, that we are not receiving capital funding to buy new buses, and our fleet is aging, and we have to spend more to maintain it. Besides gas prices going up, or just maintenance of the fleet, aging fleet is also becoming a problem. And the budget for service and supplies and transportation hasn't changed since pandemic. So this is something that in the amended budget, we understand we will have to seriously look at how we are going to manage transportation to maintain this service. One of ideas is to use a restricted capital fund to buy buses, but this is something that will be decided later on. And cost pressures in technology is like licenses and cost of devices, Chromebooks and everything goes up. And we just, because we are committed to provide certain number of devices per student, and we have to refresh those devices regularly. So those prices keep going up. Those are two biggest pressures.
I just want to add to to give you an example, the price of a teacher laptop has gone from $1,100 to $1,700 within like the last year. It's skyrocketing. There's some kind of resource issues that's happening right now, and it's just making it really difficult. So the amount of devices that we have to purchase for that has gone down significantly. So,
thank you, Danielle.
Yeah.
Yes, I didn't know about this jump in price. So leave provisions is a big budget line item, which is hard to budget. Very difficult to budget because it includes maternity leaves, which became very big recently. A lot of teachers go on monthly leave and we top up their maternity leave pay. It's slightly down from like it's the same, like from 3.4 million to 3.3 million. We did a lot of analysis of current year leaves, and we believe that we may do with this amount for leaves. We'll see when actual 25-26 results are in, and we're ready to analyze one more actual year. Some other pressures I highlighted here are plant maintenance and utilities. And yeah, I already talked about student transportation. Plant maintenance cost also like going up, and this year we normally have annual equipment replacement around 90,000 every year, and for 26-27 it was postponed to 27-28. So there is no replacement for vehicle or equipment because it was not possible to balance the budget if we keep doing this. And utilities are on average, like I was looking last 3 years, on average, like 6% up, like utility bill from municipalities, on average every year 6% up. So we didn't increase it like by 41,000 for now, but we'll see how it looks like next year. The governance expense allocation includes 35,000 for elections, and it's very preliminary amount. It's bare minimum. It most likely be a very different amount, and Danielle might speak to that in more details if you if you have something here.
Yeah, so this is what we were charged last election, and I was only charged by one municipality, so it's really hard to say. They could charge us significantly more if all of the municipalities end up running elections for us and charging us. So we'll have to see what it actually comes in at. But for now, I just put it in what we were charged the last election, and just something we have to keep in the back of our minds that could go up.
Overall, revenue allocation is 84.2 million and 175,000. We basically here balance to zero because 175,000 is required carry forward of early care programs for 27-28 year. And yeah, it's very tight budget, and some line items we know for sure will have to go up. But the good news that we didn't budget use of unrestricted surpluses, our reserves, and we'll see how enrollment will go. Will be that low, or maybe it will be a little bit higher next year. That's what I have.
Okay, thank you. Celeste, go ahead.
I just had one question on transportation. So I know we've talked in the past about utilization of the city buses, say within Squamish, for example, where there are potentially adequate buses already in place to transport students home from school, but the bus schedules may not necessarily align. Although I think that there has been some changes. So is that something that's been discussed in terms of transferring that particular piece of the puzzle to existing infrastructure?
Yes, as we learn more, that may be something that we come back to the board with in terms of some districts have where there is the transit busing is that a request for passes for students say high school age and older. And so then the focus on the transportation would be on elementary aged students. We're not at that stage yet, but it is something that we may bring to the board for consideration. And I'm sure there would be lots of discussion around that. And I do know some jurisdictions, not all municipalities or BC Transit has worked with boards to provide those passes. Instead, that shifts to boards. And so then there has to be that cost benefit analysis, because in some cases, it's not significant savings and causes lots of other competing interests when folks have to make decisions around budget. And maybe I'll also share, I know it was a lot of information, but just to be assured that we've really done our best. We have lots of meeting around budget to see where we can trim back a little bit to ensure, again, services are still in play, but we're not having to go to restricted surplus. So the decisions around new vehicle purchase, equipment purchase, the technology of just maintaining what we have and not going above and beyond, and seeing where we can stretch out use of laptops before needing to replace them. So lots of those conversations have been happening where we've trimmed where we don't feel it's going to have necessarily service impacts. So I just appreciate the work of the finance team and the staff for those discussions.
And I remember when we had that discussion a long time ago with the District of Squamish, they did want, they were talking about that, about us issuing passes, but at our cost.
Mhm.
So you're right, we would have to have some big discussion to see. I mean, I guess you would save the cost of maintaining a bus, but we'd have to, at that point, we would have to really look at it. Okay, so moving on to B, annual budget detail. Or have we already covered that?
I
I
already
think we've
covered
covered
that.
that. It
And
feels
by
like we
law,
have.
we may look at by law if there is an interest, but we normally
look at-
we have a annual budget by law also
Right.
as a C,
Right,
but we haven't looked at it in the past. We can if you want to.
okay, so
This
should we at
is
this point
the
move this
bylaw
as-
that we are approving right now, adopting.
Lisa.
Where is she?
So I think about 3 minutes ago, Lisa joined us.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, guys.
Yeah, okay, now she's there. Okay, got you. Sorry, go ahead, Lisa.
Just looking for those questions I sent. Just a second. I did have a couple of questions pertaining to this document, if you don't mind. For clarity, is it easier for me just to run through the 5 questions, or would you like them one by one?
Well, let's start with the first one.
Sorry,
Okay.
do we need to, I just don't recall, I apologize, I think I'm just tired today. Given that this meeting was meant to end at 12:30, I don't recall what are
Oh.
there any processes we have to do
Well,
to
we-
extend the meeting?
No, we do
Or
go,
not?
it is going into lunch.
I'm just,
So
it's a
I'm
curious question, to
thinking
make sure we're not,
That,
it's not cutting off if it's broadcasting, okay.
no, I think it's just gonna cut into our lunch. Okay, go ahead, Lisa.
Okay,
One at
so
a time.
the-
Let's start with the first one.
Okay, so the first comment or question is just confirming, and apologies, you may have done this earlier with the North and the South, just confirming Indigenous education, that revenue is coming to us from the North and South as presented in their budgets under revenue.
So just to explain how that funding works is that funding comes from the province based on the number of Indigenous students that are self-identified. And so the funding comes to us, the school district, and the Indigenous Education Council decides on how that budget is spent.
Okay.
So it's actually not actually sitting in their books, it's sitting in our.
In ours, and
Yeah.
it's an offset from their budget, but it's a revenue we receive.
No, it's not in their budget, it's our budget. It's sitting in our budget. The revenues come to us, but they decide how the funds
Where
will
it's
be
getting spent.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that. Also, I noticed that we've got about $3 million less in revenues. And we've taken some from reserves. So do we have, I just caught the tail end, like computers potentially, what is our longer term strategy? Have we got one? What are,
Okay,
and
Lisa,
we
I
don't
think
need,
That was already addressed.
Yeah, I think we've covered the.
oh,
that
okay.
throughout the
Okay,
meeting.
pardon me.
Yeah.
And then I had, could you explain what school generated funds are, 2A, as that's something that we didn't have in the 2025-2026 budget? Also, what accounting change has occurred that childcare fees revenue is broken out as well? Is that due to the School Act requirements and the policy amendments we just had to
Okay,
make?
Now you've got 2 questions.
It's
so-
okay, Elena can answer it.
Okay, go ahead, Elena.
Lisa, about school generated funds are in Schedule 2A. I believe you're referring to this schedule.
Yep.
And to this line, right?
Both of those lines. there.
So school generated funds used to be presented in financial statements, but not in budget, because we didn't budget really for them. They're in school bank accounts, and schools are generating them and spending. Starting 25-26 amended budget, we included it for the first time as a budget line item, and we included it. We always been including them in financials. And 25-26 amended annual budget had this budget line item, but because we are comparing to annual budget is compared to annual budget prior year, and amended annual budget is compared to amended annual budget last year. That's why that line is missing in
Prior year.
in prior year comparison. The same goes for childcare fees. We had very small amount budgeted in 25-26 annual budget. I doubt if we had anything from parents' fees budgeted at that time of the year. This year, we operations are like at least half capacity, or a little more than half capacity, and we have more assurance that those fees from parents will happen, and we put it in the budget.
Okay, thank you for that. And if we could jump to 2B, I just wanted clarification that are the salary totals correct after collective bargaining? As I can't help but see $1 million change in salaries on Schedule 2B. So was our 2025, 2026 overinflated based on what happened with bargaining? Or, yeah, sorry, it just seemed like a significant amount.
Alana, are you able?
Do you want me to answer that?
Yep, yeah.
So earlier in the meeting, we talked about we have a projected enrollment decline, Lisa.
Okay.
So when we have an enrollment decline, that means less classes. So we would have, you know, less staff.
Okay.
So that is a reflection of we're getting less revenue, less expenses.
Okay, thank you very
Correspond.
much.
Yeah, we have 240 FTE students down comparing to last year, so that's like 10 classrooms.
Okay, thank you.
And teachers, approximately 1 million.
Ouch. I'll leave out the one about the increase in services and supplies. That one kind of jumped out at me as well, but I think you already discussed it earlier at the tail end I caught. One other question I did have is with the fuel cost in Schedule 3.7.7, are we sure that number is okay given the price of fuel? Like should not that I want to be spending more, but
Which
if you go to transportation, so 3770.
Which page are you looking at?
which
I just had-
schedule are you looking at?
Schedule 3.
Schedule 3. Oh, Schedule 3, transportation and housing. This one?
Yeah, so that
This is tripartite agreement funding that we are planning to fully spend.
okay. Okay, thank you. Those are my questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so are we on the recommendation piece of the annual budget and bylaw? Oh, sorry, Celeste, go ahead.
I'll move that the Finance Committee recommend that the Board of Education approve the 26-27 annual budget as presented.
And could we have a second for that motion?
Turpin.
Thank you, Melissa. And all in favor? Okay, so that has been passed. Before we move to questions of clarification from the public, I'd like to thank the team for doing an amazing job of balancing a very tight budget. And I also want to reiterate, I think something that Chris said earlier for Lisa's sake, all of these projections have been very conservative, so probably including the increase of fuel costs. So just like to say that. So I'm looking forward to not having to make any hugely hard decisions in 2026, 2027. So thanks
Hopefully.
again for the team for balancing the budget. Any other comment, Danielle? Are you good? Or are you just wanting to ask for questions of clarification from the public?
I don't have anything else. It just, you know, it's getting more and more difficult to balance our budget. And hopefully I'm curious to see what Paul's going to present tonight when he does his enrollment update. So
Oh, don't build it up too much.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm very excited for it.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Any
thank you for
questions of clarification.
there's no questions.
Okay, before we adjourn, I want to thank Cynthia for joining us. We didn't have quorum for our financial committee meeting. So thank you so much, Cynthia, for taking time away from your family and joining us from Ontario. So any other comments? I think I can call this